The family dinner was supposed to celebrate our engagement. Instead, I watched my sister lean across the table, wine glass raised high, announcing to everyone that if I ever changed my mind, she'd be first in line for my fiancé. The laughter was immediate. Automatic. The kind that fills a room and makes you feel like you're drowning in sound. My mother's delighted giggle. My father's uncomfortable chuckle. Even my aunt nodded like Claire had said something clever instead of something cruel. Alex's hand found mine under the table. His grip was tight. Protective. But also helpless. I smiled. The kind of smile you perfect when you're 27 and tired of being the family peacekeeper. The kind that says I'm fine when every cell in your body is screaming the opposite, but something shifted in that moment. Something I'd been avoiding for months finally crystallized into perfect, cold clarity. The way she touched his arm when she talked. The way she monopolized every conversation when he was around. The way she made me feel invisible at my own celebration. My name is Bree. I'm 27. And I've finally learned what silence can accomplish. It started 3 weeks after Alex proposed, when Claire invited us to celebrate at her favorite restaurant. The kind of place where the wine list has no prices and the waiters remember your name. She'd made the reservation before asking if we were free, then texted, "You'll love this place. It's where I take all my important dates." I should have paid attention to that word choice. Important. She arrived 20 minutes late, which was typical Claire. Hair perfectly styled, makeup that looked effortless but probably took an hour, wearing a dress that cost more than my monthly grocery budget. She kissed Alex hello first, her hand lingering on his shoulder as she settled into the seat directly across from him. "You look handsome tonight," she told him, ignoring the fact that I was sitting right there. "That color brings out your eyes." Alex shifted uncomfortably. "Thanks, Claire. You look nice too. Take good care of him, Bree," she said, her fingers still resting on his arm as she spoke to me. "Or I will." The words hung in the air for exactly 2 seconds. Then she laughed, and everyone else followed like they'd been given permission. But I felt my stomach drop. The joke wasn't funny. It was a threat wrapped in family humor. Alex pulled his arm back, just slightly, but enough for me to notice. His smile looked frozen in place. The rest of dinner was a blur of Claire's voice. She dominated every conversation, every moment that should have been about us. When Alex mentioned his recent promotion, she leaned forward with the kind of focused interest I'd never seen her show in my achievements. When I tried to talk about our wedding plans, she redirected the conversation to her own dating life. "I'm so picky about men," she said, cutting through my description of our venue. "But I know quality when I see it." Her eyes were on Alex as she said it. "Relax, sis," she added when she caught me watching. "He's just handsome, not married yet." More laughter. More frozen smiles. More of that sick feeling in my stomach that told me this wasn't normal sister behavior. In the car afterward, Alex was unusually quiet. His hands gripped the steering wheel tighter than necessary, and he kept checking the rearview mirror like he was making sure we weren't being followed. "I noticed," he said finally, his voice careful and measured. "I didn't like it either." Those 7 words changed everything. The memory of doubting myself, of wondering if I was overreacting, suddenly felt foolish. My discomfort wasn't jealousy or insecurity. It was a boundary alarm, and it had been ringing for weeks. That night, I created a note on my phone. I titled it "Lines She Crossed." The first entry was simple: dinner, March 15th, inappropriate touching. Possessive comments about my fiancé. I didn't know then that this list would become my roadmap to freedom. I just knew I needed to start paying attention to the patterns I'd been too polite to name. The absence of reaction, I was learning, didn't mean the absence of awareness. It just meant I was finally ready to watch instead of laugh along. The text messages started 3 days later, and they never came at reasonable hours, and why phone buzzed at 11:47 p.m. with a message from Claire to our family group chat. Can't sleep, thinking about wedding planning. Brie, we need to talk bridesmaid dresses tomorrow. I have so many ideas. Normal enough. Sisterly, even. But then Alex's phone lit up beside me on the nightstand. She'd sent him a separate message. A meme about couples fighting, with the caption, "Your future sister wife sending moral support face with tears of joy." The laughing emoji felt deliberate, like she was testing how far she could push before someone pushed back. Alex showed me the screen without me asking. His jaw was tight, the muscle jumping the way it does when he's trying not to say something he'll regret. "What do I even say to that?" he asked. "Nothing," I told him. "Let's see what else she sends." She sent a lot. Memes about in-laws who were too close. Late-night selfies with captions like, "Thinking of you both." TikToks about sisters who shared everything, including boyfriends. Always wrapped in humor, never quite crossing the line into obvious inappropriateness, but consistently making us both uncomfortable. Each notification felt like a small violation. Like someone walking into our bedroom without knocking, Alex started putting his phone face down during dinner. He disabled read receipts for her messages. He'd show me everything she sent, his face growing more uncomfortable each time, but neither of us knew how to address it without sounding crazy. "I'll handle it," he said one evening after she'd sent a particularly suggestive GIF at 1 a.m. But we both knew he wasn't handling it. He was enduring it, the way you endure a headache or a difficult coworker. Tolerating something that shouldn't need to be tolerated. Claire's messages to me, meanwhile, became shorter and less frequent. It was like she'd found a more interesting audience, someone who wouldn't ask uncomfortable questions about boundaries or appropriate behavior. When I finally checked our text history, I realized something that made my skin crawl. She'd been archiving our conversations, hiding them from her main message list. But Alex's messages stayed prominently displayed in her recent chats, right at the top where she'd see them every time she opened her phone, started taking screenshots. Not for drama or confrontation, but for proof that my sanity was intact. Evidence that what was happening was real, even if no one else seemed to notice. My phone gallery grew heavy with digital breadcrumbs. Timestamps at inappropriate hours. Messages that crossed lines I couldn't even name properly. The slow accumulation of someone who thought absence of reaction meant absence of awareness, but I was aware. I was watching. And I was learning that sometimes the most powerful response to boundary violations isn't anger or confrontation. Sometimes it's simply deciding you've seen enough. Sunday lunch at mom's house used to be sacred. Family time without phones, without drama, without the complications that adult life brings to everything else. A few hours where we could just be siblings again, arguing about nothing and laughing at Dad's terrible jokes. Claire ruined that too. She arrived 20 minutes late, which was becoming her signature move. Makeup perfect, carrying expensive wine like an offering to the family altar. The kind of entrance that demanded attention and usually got it. Alex and I were already seated, already deep in conversation with Mom about centerpiece ideas and whether we wanted a DJ or a band. Normal, boring wedding talk that felt precious in its simplicity. Claire kissed everyone hello, but her hug with Alex lasted a beat too long. Her hand lingered on his shoulder as she settled into the seat directly across from him, the same positioning she'd chosen at the restaurant. Strategic. Intentional. "Sorry I'm late," she said, not sounding sorry at all. "I had a date last night that ran way longer than expected." She winked at Alex as she said it, like they were sharing some private joke that excluded the rest of us. The conversation flowed easily until Mom raised her glass of Claire's expensive wine. "To Brie and Alex," she said, her voice warm with genuine happiness. "To finding your person and building something beautiful together." Claire's smile sharpened. She raised her own glass higher than anyone else's, commanding attention the way she always did. "And if Brie ever backs out," she announced to the table, her voice carrying that familiar note of false cheerfulness. "You all know I'm first in line." The laughter was immediate. Automatic. The kind that fills a room and makes you feel like you're drowning in sound. Mom's delighted giggle. Dad's uncomfortable chuckle. Even Aunt Margaret nodded like Claire had said something clever instead of something cruel, but I wasn't laughing. I was watching Alex's face pale. I was feeling my cheeks burn with something between embarrassment and rage. I was realizing that this wasn't the first time she'd made this particular joke, just the first time I'd been paying close enough attention to catch the pattern. "Noted," I said quietly, my voice cutting through the laughter like a blade. It was the first time I'd responded to one of her comments directly. The first crack in my polite facade, and everyone felt it. The laughter died awkwardly, like someone had turned off a radio mid-song. Claire's eyes widened with mock surprise. "Oh, come on, sis. You know I'm just kidding. I would never steal your man." She paused, letting the moment stretch. "Unless he asked nicely." More laughter, but weaker. This time, even Mom looked uncomfortable. The conversation moved on, but I felt disconnected from it. Like I was watching a play where everyone knew their lines except me. Like I was the only one who could see that the jokes weren't actually funny, they were test runs for something else. Entirely later, as we were cleaning up, my aunt pulled me aside in the kitchen. "That didn't sound like a joke," she whispered, glancing toward the living room where Claire was monopolizing Alex's attention with stories about her dating life. I added another entry to my growing list: Sunday lunch, March 28th, public humiliation disguised as family humor. Witnesses present. The list was getting longer. My patience was getting shorter. And for the first time in my life, I was starting to understand that being family doesn't give you permission to be cruel, even when everyone else is laughing along. I asked Claire to meet me for coffee on a Tuesday afternoon. Neutral ground. Public space. No family audience to perform for, no one to laugh at her jokes or excuse her behavior as just being Claire. She arrived 15 minutes late, which felt intentional. Her apology was brief and insincere, more of an acknowledgement than actual regret. She ordered an expensive latte and immediately launched into complaints about the weather, the traffic, the barista's attitude toward customers who knew what they wanted, waited for her to finish. Then I spoke, my voice calm and measured in a way that surprised even me. "I need you to stop the flirt jokes with Alex." Her eyebrows shot up like I'd said something in a foreign language. Her mouth opened slightly, revealing the kind of genuine surprise you can't fake. "Excuse me?" "The jokes. The touching. The late-night messages. I need it to stop." She laughed. Actually laughed, the sound sharp and dismissive like I'd told her the earth was flat or that vaccines caused autism. "If you're insecure, that's on you," she said, stirring her latte with more force than necessary. "I'm just being friendly. We're going to be family, remember? In-laws are supposed to be close." "I'm not insecure," I said, and for the first time in months, I meant it completely. "I'm done." The words came out calmer than I felt, clearer than I'd expected. For the first time in this entire mess, I felt like I was speaking my own language. Instead of translating everything through the filter of family politeness. Claire's face changed. The playful mask slipped for just a moment, revealing something colder underneath. Something that had probably always been there, hidden behind the laughter and the expensive wine and the jokes that weren't really jokes. "Wow," she said, her voice dripping with the kind of condescension usually reserved for children having tantrums. "Overreact much?" I didn't argue. I didn't explain. I didn't try to justify my feelings or provide evidence for my concerns. I just gathered my purse and stood up, leaving her sitting there with her expensive latte and her wounded pride. "Think about what I said," I told her as I walked away. "We're family. Act like it. Within 2 hours, she'd posted to her close friend's story, "Some brides can't handle banter face with tears of joy #drama #wedding stress." The laughing emoji felt like a slap, but it also felt like evidence. Proof that she'd heard me clearly and chosen mockery. Over respect. A mutual friend sent me a screenshot without comment. No message, no explanation, just evidence that my sister had chosen public humiliation over private reflection. That night, I made a decision that felt both inevitable and revolutionary. I texted my cousin Sarah, "Would you be my maid of honor instead?" The shift felt seismic. Claire had been my automatic choice for 16 years, the person I'd always assumed would stand beside me at every major life event. Now she was just another name on the guest list, and that felt both heartbreaking and liberating. Sarah called me within 10 minutes of receiving the text. Her voice was careful, like she was walking through a minefield. "Are you sure about this?" she asked. "I'm sure," I said, and I was. For the first time in months, I was absolutely certain about something. She had her chance to be my sister. She chose to be something else instead. The memory of every inappropriate comment, every boundary crossed, every moment of discomfort I'd swallowed for the sake of family peace crystallized into perfect clarity. This wasn't about jealousy or wedding stress or pre-marriage jitters. This was about deciding that I deserved better than a sister who treated my engagement like an audition. The photographer called me on a Thursday morning, his voice professional, but confused, like he was reading from a script he didn't quite understand. "Hi Bree, this is Marcus from Eternal Moments Photography. I got an interesting request from your sister about a sisters-only shoot next week. She said it was your surprise gift to her, but I wanted to confirm with you directly since we hadn't discussed it." My coffee went cold in my hands. I set the mug down carefully, buying myself time to process what I'd just heard. She'd booked a photo session without asking me, used my name, called it my gift to her. The audacity was breathtaking, but it was also revealing. This was how she saw our relationship, as something she could manipulate and control, assuming I'd go along with whatever she decided. "If Claire's paying for it," I told Marcus, keeping my voice steady, "she's welcome to book whatever she wants. But my schedule is completely full until after the wedding." The photographer paused. I could hear him shuffling papers, the awkward silence of someone who'd walked into family drama without realizing it. "Actually," he said carefully, "she mentioned that you'd be covering the cost. Something about it being part of your wedding package?" I thanked him for calling and hung up. The family group chat exploded within hours. Apparently, Claire had announced her photo session to everyone as evidence of how close we were, how supportive I was being, how excited she was to be such an important part of my special day. "Why are you excluding her?" Mom texted privately. "She's so hurt, honey. She just wants to celebrate with you." I didn't respond with words. I forwarded Marcus's voicemail to the family chat and let the screenshots speak for themselves. The silence that followed was different from the usual family diplomacy. This was the silence of people realizing they'd been played. 3 family members apologized privately within the hour. 2 others asked if I was okay, really okay, not just wedding stress okay. My cousin Rachel sent a simple message, "I see it now. I'm sorry I didn't before." But the most telling response came from the absence of response. Claire went completely quiet in the group chat. No jokes, no comments, no attempts to explain or justify. Just silence where her voice usually dominated every conversation. The control she'd maintained over the family narrative was cracking. People were starting to watch instead of just laugh. They were noticing patterns they'd previously dismissed as Claire being Claire. Didn't block her number. I didn't delete her from group chats or make any dramatic announcements about our relationship status. I just stopped responding to her attempts at conversation. When she texted, I read but didn't reply. When she called, I let it go to voicemail. The distance I created wasn't cruel or vindictive. It was necessary. Like stepping back from a fire that keeps trying to burn you, no matter how pretty the flames look. For the first time in my adult life, I was choosing my own peace over family harmony. And it felt revolutionary. The absence of my attention, I was learning, spoke louder than any argument could. Claire had built her entire identity around being the center of attention, the life of the party, the sister everyone loved and indulged. Without my participation in that dynamic, the whole structure started to collapse. The wedding rehearsal was supposed to be simple. Run through the ceremony, practice the processional, iron out any last-minute details. Then dinner with the wedding party and immediate family, nothing fancy, just good food and better company. Claire arrived wearing white, not ivory. Not cream. Not some pale color that could be explained away as poor lighting or a misunderstanding. White. The kind of stark, bridal white that makes a statement louder than words ever could. I saw her first as she walked into the chapel. My breath caught, not from surprise but from the sheer audacity of it. Mom gasped audibly. My maid of honor Sarah physically stepped closer to me, a protective instinct she probably didn't even realize she was following, but I wasn't shocked. I was prepared. I walked calmly to my car and retrieved a manila envelope from my purse. I'd spent weeks putting it together, organizing screenshots and text messages and voicemails into a clear, chronological timeline. Not for drama or revenge, but for clarity. For the people who'd been asking me to explain why I seemed so distant. From Claire lately, I handed sealed copies to my parents, my maid of honor, Alex's parents, and my officiant. Each envelope was labeled with the recipient's name in my careful handwriting. Read this tonight, in private, I said, my voice calm and measured. Tomorrow is about love. Drama stays home. Claire tried to approach me as I walked back toward the chapel, her white dress rustling like accusation, but I was already moving away. She called my name, but I didn't turn around. I'd spent months turning around for her, listening to her, making excuses for her. I was done turning around. The rehearsal itself was awkward. Claire sat in the back row, her white dress now looking desperate instead of defiant. Conversations were stilted. Laughter felt forced. Everyone kept glancing at her, then at me, trying to read the temperature of a situation they didn't fully understand. The dinner afterward was worse. Claire sat at the far end of the table, isolated in a way that felt both intentional and inevitable. My father kept clearing his throat and avoiding eye contact with everyone. Mom's smile looked painted on halfway through the main course. Dad pulled me aside. I read it, he said quietly, his voice heavy with something that might have been shame. I'm sorry, sweetheart. I should have seen it sooner. We all should have. Mom approached an hour later, her eyes red-rimmed from crying or anger or both. She needs to apologize, Mom said, her voice shaking. Publicly. To you and to Alex and to everyone who's been enabling this. I shook my head. She needs to decide what kind of person she wants to be. I can't make that choice for her. Claire left early. No goodbye, no explanation, just an empty chair and the lingering scent of her expensive perfume. Even her absence felt performative, like she was hoping someone would chase after her and beg her to come back, and no one did. The next morning, I confirmed what everyone already knew. Claire would attend the wedding as a regular guest. No special seating, no spotlight during the ceremony, no speech at the reception. Just another name on the guest list, just another person watching from the audience. The silence around that decision was louder than any argument could have been. It was the sound of a family finally understanding that love without boundaries isn't love at all, just permission to be cruel. My wedding day was perfect. Not because everything went according to plan. Not because the weather cooperated. Or the flowers looked exactly right or the band played every song on our list. It was perfect because I felt, for the first time in months, completely at peace. Claire arrived 30 minutes late, slipping into a back row like she was trying to become invisible. She wore black, which felt like its own kind of statement. The choice spoke louder than any tantrum could have, and everyone noticed. I walked down the aisle focusing entirely on Alex's face. On the way his eyes lit up when he saw me. On the smile that started small and grew until it threatened to split his face in half. On the memory we were creating together, without interference or commentary from the sidelines. The ceremony was intimate and personal and ours. The vows we'd written ourselves, the readings we'd chosen, the music that meant something to us instead of something that would photograph well. There was no drama. No interruptions. No jokes about backup brides or first-in-line comments. Just two people who'd chosen each other, surrounded by people who genuinely wanted to celebrate that choice. Afterward, during the photo session, Marcus offered to capture some sister shots. "Just a few frames," he said diplomatically. "Family photos are always treasured later." I declined with a smile. Gentle but firm. "Some moments are meant to be remembered clearly," I told him. "Without complications." He understood immediately and moved on to the shots I actually wanted. Pictures with people who'd shown up for me, not for the performance or the attention. Or the chance to be seen. The reception flowed beautifully. Speeches from people who genuinely supported us. Laughter that felt authentic instead of obligatory. Dancing that lasted until midnight, conversations that I actually wanted to have. Claire left before the cake cutting. No announcement, no dramatic exit, just an empty chair that no one mentioned. Her absence was noted but not mourned, like a headache finally fading away. Later, scrolling through the photos on my phone, I noticed something that made me smile. In every shot where a maid of honor might traditionally stand, the composition looked complete. Balanced. Right. Sarah's presence felt natural and earned, not assumed or inherited. I posted one photo to social media. Alex and me, foreheads touching. Smiling at each other instead of the camera. We looked happy. Actually, genuinely happy. The caption was simple, "Peace fits." The comments were overwhelmingly positive. Friends who'd watched the drama unfold from a distance seemed to understand what I couldn't say directly. The likes felt genuine, not obligatory. The silence around what wasn't mentioned was more powerful than any explanation could have been. 6 months later, Claire texted, "I miss you." 3 words. No apology, no acknowledgement of what had happened. No indication that she understood why we'd arrived at this place. Just an expectation that missing me was enough to bridge the gap she'd created. I read the message. I felt the familiar tug of family obligation, the urge to smooth things over and pretend the past year hadn't happened. The old Bree would have responded immediately, would have found a way to make Claire feel better about the consequences of her own choices. But I didn't answer. That silence was earned, fought for, carefully constructed over months of learning to value my own peace over everyone else's comfort. The absence of my response wasn't cruelty. It was choice. The decision to let silence do what words had never been able to accomplish. Some relationships end with explosions. Others end with the quiet recognition that you've simply grown beyond the space they used to occupy. I chose quiet. And it was enough. Finally, blessedly enough.